guys, welcome to HipHughes History. We got a little poli-sci on the stove for you today. How do you like that? Taking a look at demographics. I read a really great article that I've posted below in the Washington Post by Reed Wilson called Another Way to Explain Who We Are. And in this article, he looks at Dante Cini's, the author of Patchwork Nations, breakdown of regional demographics looking at 15 communities in the United States. So we're going to do that. I even brought in Tea Party reporter Susie Sampson and her liberal cousin Rebecca Rubenstein to kind of flesh out ideology and demographics a little more for you. So you're going to want to stick around for that. But right now, if you hear it, I can hear it. Here it comes. Giddy up for the learning. Here we go. So before we get started, let's make sure that everybody out there, whether you're a school or you're, cray-cray on the internet, that you understand what demographics are. Demographics is basically looking at the population and then kind of breaking it up by different labels. So we could look at religion or age or education or gender or race or regional stuff and kind of predict how those people vote by looking at how they voted in the past. So there's a couple warnings that go into this stew before we eat it up. Number one would be to remember that this is within the context of the two-party system. There's plenty of people that are apathetic and don't vote. There's plenty of people that don't vote for political reasons. And there's plenty of people that are independents or are third-party voters that are out there that don't align with our demographics. So that's kind of warning number one. Warning number two is holy stereotyping, Batman. Yeah, they are absolutely stereotyping. So we're going to say things that people are not going to fit into these square pegs. And we want to remind you of that. This is just what political scientists use to predict voter behavior and outcomes of elections. So giddy up for that. Here we go. Let's first take a look at conservatives, people that vote Republicans to the right. Let's go. Go to the right. Alright, let's start with a community of about 3 million people. This is a community that Dante Cini labels as the EDLS enclaves, predominantly in Utah. It's about 41 counties. Demographically, we're going to start breaking it down a little bit. It actually has a higher percentage of young people, but it is overwhelmingly white, 90%, and overwhelmingly religious. These are Mormons, kind of conservative Christians in that sense. They voted 74% for Romney. So a couple demographic swings that you need to get is, number one, white people generally vote Republican. But religion, and the more times you go to church a week, the more kind of faithful you are, the more likely you are going to vote Republican. So those two demographics in this LDS enclave outweigh the other demographic, which is they're predominantly younger people. Mormons like to have kids, or younger people. Younger people generally vote Democrat, but that's outweighed by those other two demographics that we talked about. So there's the LDS enclaves. Onward, we got another one for you. 89 counties, 9.7 million people. These are military posts. And again, this is a little bit of a weird demographic. They're more educated than the general population. They're younger and they're more diverse. And generally, these attributes would probably make this a swing district. But because they're in the military, they're more likely to vote Republican. Military members vote more likely Republican. Romney won this by 58% military posts. Rural Middle America. This kind of constitutes upstate New York through Minnesota. It's 599 counties and 21.5 million people. Overwhelmingly white and overwhelmingly they live in small towns. Again, demographics that are going to have these counties leaning Republican. Rural voters, small town voters generally vote Republican. Bang. The EXURBS. The EXURBS are kind of weird. First of all, they're going to vote for Romney, the Republicans, but listen to why. Their average income is $63,000. These 32 million people make up some of the wealthiest counties in the United States. So where is an EXURB? It's not the city, obviously, but it's also not the suburbs. The suburbs are the kind of the first ring around the city, but it's also not the rural areas. Rural areas would be kind of way away from the cities. These are kind of the in-between areas, big homes, maybe huge developments with really nice houses that are kind of far away from things, but close enough maybe to jump on the highway and commute. So these wealthy people are going to vote Republican, and that's a demographic kind of swing that generally in economics, the more money you make, the more likely you're going to be Republican. So poor people generally vote for Democrats and rich people vote for Republicans. Generally, stereotypes. Graying America. Age is a demographic that we know. The younger you are, the more likely you're going to vote Democrat. And these 15.3 million people in 364 counties that are predominantly in the Mountain West and up into those northern states, so like North Dakota and Montana, those areas, they have more people that are above the age of 62 than are under 18. So Romney's going to win this by 56% in the last election. Age leans to the right. The evangelistic HUGs. So these are religious voters. Religious voters, 12.5 million of them in 373 counties in the greater Appalachian, kind of Kentucky, West Virginia, 85% white, and only 15% have a college degree, a bachelor's degree. So education is going to align to the Democrats. The more education you have, the higher your degree, you generally go to the Democratic side. So a large amount of these people are kind of high school graduates, and that's going to align more with the Republican side, as well as being, 85% white and being rural. You get the idea. Religion as well, all throwing to Romney. You ready for this? 69% voted for Romney in the last election. Bang, bang. The aging farmland. Do I really have to explain myself? Only about 500,000 people in 161 counties, but a quarter of their population is over 62. It is predominantly white. It's predominantly rural. This is the Great Plains, the Bible Belt. It's religious, all throwing it to the Republican side. 68% for Romney. Working class country, guys, about 8.5 million people, 94% white. The conversation is over. We also have lower college degrees, so we have kind of education aligning to the Republican side. And these regional areas in the Ozarks, the Smoky Mountains, down in Arkansas, are definitely rural outposts. And that is going to also align with Republicans. Romney is going to kick butt in these areas. He's going to win it by 20 points. Middle suburbs, 16.3 million people, and I saved this last demographic group for the Republicans because it's barely Republican. We would consider this really not a red area or a blue area, Republican or Democrat. We'd consider this a purple area, swing districts. And these are basically less wealthy than the exurbs, less wealthy than the suburbs. They're generally outside of the suburbs. People that can't afford to live in the suburbs are these fancy rich houses, so they're basically on the towns that surround the suburbs. Generally less educated than people that are living in the suburbs, not so close to the city, but they're not really rural. These are voters that are up for grabs. I thought this would be a great time to introduce my friend, Tea Party reporter Susie Sampson. So Susie's going to speak to really the ideology and the demographics of being a Republican. And she even got an interview from her cousin, Rebecca Rubenstein. So we're going to take a look kind of into the mind of a liberal and demographics as well. So I turn it over to you, Susie, and thanks for doing this for me.
Susie Sampson, your favorite Tea Party reporter, and I wanted to explain us white people. You see, we just like each other a lot. It's not that we don't like other races. We do. It's just that, you see, we all look the same, so it's a little less confusing. Plus, most of us are older white men, so we can't see very well. Plus, we don't like change. Those evangelicals praise Jesus. Just love the way it rolls off my tongue. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. What else is there to laugh other than Jesus? I don't know. Nothing. Now, just because only 15% of us went to college doesn't mean we aren't well-informed and smart and worldly. Quite the opposite. It's through osmosis that we get our learning. Just look at us. At least we're better looking than those liberals. Hey, I'm Rebecca Rubenstein, and I'm Susie's liberal cousin. Thank God she has one. I just wanted to talk to you about us liberals. Those of us who live in the big cities. Why do we live there? 'Cause we're better. Huh. And most of us have college degrees, which makes us know everything in the world. Seriously, I know the world. First of all, many of us are in the big cities. Wouldn't you want to live on top of one another to just soak in all of the intelligence that's coming at you? We are proudly elitist. Also, because I sit next to minorities on the subway, I totally feel their pain, especially sitting in my apartment in Park Slope, Brooklyn. It used to be a very dangerous place, but us liberals, we like to find the dangerous places, clean them up, and make them really expensive to live in. Now, for those of us looking to grow up, we moved to the suburbs, but They're the urban suburbs. So we live close to diversity, but we don't have to live in diversity. We want to make sure we can still ride the subway and feel the pain of those sitting next to us, even if we live in nicer housing. And it makes us feel like we're living in America. And it gets us to our favorite market, Whole Foods. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you to HipHughes. You're always a good friend. Everyone should be subscribing to HipHughes, and hopefully you'll subscribe to Newsy News so you can get more of me and maybe a little Rebecca. But I can't control that one. We don't have the same mama.
So we only have 6 communities to look at because these are generally kind of more populated areas of the country. We first look at big cities. Obama won big cities, which is 73 million people in 46 counties, by 65% of the vote. It's a washout. Why is it a washout? Diversity. We've been talking a lot about how white voters generally vote for Republicans, so the opposite would be true of many diverse groups like African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, Native Americans. And we have lots of diversities in big cities. Generally, big cities contain about 25% African American, 25% Hispanic, and that's going to push it way over to the Democratic side. So guys, in the African American South, we have about 371 counties of about 16.7 million people that are 40% African American, and the average salary is really, these are some of the poorer communities in the country, about $35,000. So we know economics definitely aligns with demographics, because the less you make, the more likely you are to be a Democratic voter. And we've already talked about ethnicity and race leaning towards the Democrats as well. So Obama and the Democratic Party is going to take the African American South. College towns. College towns compose about 154 counties, nearly 18 million people, and high percentages of 18 to 21-year-olds, and we know that young voters generally vote for Democrats, and a higher number of degrees, like bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. So you're also having that alignment of education going towards the Democratic Party. One of the problems, though, is we also know that younger voters don't vote. So when we look at demographics, it's not just who you vote for, but who's more likely to vote. And young people don't vote. I don't know if they're watching SpongeBob or playing on the PlayStation or doing something like that, but old people vote and young people don't. So keep that in mind when you're talking about younger voters. Hispanic centers, guys, about 11.5 million people, predominantly in the Southwest. And these areas, and this is a changing demographic, were predominantly white and rural and Republican for a long, long time. But because of immigration and the larger Hispanic numbers that are growing in those areas, they're definitely leaning towards the Democrat. You also have a surge in young people in these areas. So these once secure Republican areas are definitely now purple swing districts that are swinging over to the Democratic side of things. You're seeing states like Arizona and Nevada that are becoming more potential states that Democrats could win in, where they couldn't do that 20 years ago. We're almost done. How about that? Urban suburbs, guys. Urban suburbs are about 66 million people in 106 counties. These are the suburbs, or the areas that are outside the biggest cities in the countries: Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, and Boston. Many of these people are professionals that commute to big cities. They're highly educated, and I think that's predominantly what pushes them into the Democratic camp. 70% white. They're generally wealthier than a lot of communities, but that's going to be outweighed by their college education. So urban suburbs, Obama's going to win by 16 points.
This is it, this is it.
Native Americans. The Native American demographic group represents about 700,000 people. Very low percentage of white people. Makes up about 42 counties. And these are some of the poorest communities in America. So number one, we have ethnicity. Number two, we have salaries, low salaries. And that's going to align with the Democratic Party. And Obama's going to take these areas. Not a lot of people, but the demographics are going to swing to the left. So guys, thanks for joining us on our walk through demographics. I hope that you understand general trends in different groups in America and how they vote. Thanks to Susie Sampson and Rebecca Rubenstein. You definitely want to check out Susie Sampson has an awesome YouTube page that you need to subscribe to, and you can do that by clicking right there. And every time that you subscribe to Susie's page, you're going to save a pony. Don't you want to save a pony? And check us out next time on the YouTubes as we continue to take a critical look at history and poli-sci and world history and grow our brains 10 times our size. How many cat videos can you watch? We'll see you next time on the YouTubes, guys, where attention goes, energy flows.